City of Angels, La La Land, the entertainment capital of the world, the city that goes by so many names. It is the true embodiment of the American dream. Its greater metropolitan area is home to around 13 million people. More than 45 million tourists visit it annually, and hundreds of millions dream of conquering it. This is hardly surprising. After all, this is the place where Hollywood blockbusters and top music hits are born, where events like the Oscars and the Grammys are held annually, where you can encounter your favourite music artists and actors waiting in line for a latte, where you can immerse yourself in the culture of hundreds of countries just by walking through neighbourhoods without ever leaving the US. But there is also something else here, a world hidden from eyes of millions, a world that's buzzing underneath the streets, a world where mysterious tunnels coexist with oil wells and forgotten bunkers. This world is an integral part of Los Angeles, a city that you have certainly never seen like this before. Today, we'll go through its underground layers and reveal their secrets. What lies beneath Los Angeles? Let's start with the surface right under our feet. The area of Los Angeles is 1,299 square kilometers, and that's just the principal city. But when talking about Los Angeles, people often mean the entire metropolitan area, known as Greater Los Angeles. We are now at level 0, right on the surface. The urban area covers 5,910 square kilometers. Various types of pavement, such as asphalt, concrete, and paving stones, account for about 40% of this area. The remaining 60% is open ground in parks and private properties. Beneath this surface lies another Los Angeles, a mysterious and fascinating underground world. We're on our way to discover it. We have to struggle through the hard pavement layer to reach a depth of 10 centimeters, 4 inches. Below it are several layers of base materials. This is usually gravel or crushed stone. The thickness of this layer is typically between 15 and 30 centimeters, that's 6 to 12 inches. It serves for drainage and even distribution of the load from moving vehicles. Okay, this goes for the areas where the city is covered with the hard pavement shell. But what will we find in these shallow depths in city parks? If you start digging a hole in different regions of the US, you will see a completely different cross-section picture. Look right here. And in Los Angeles, we'll see something like this. This top layer is called the organic or humus horizon. This layer contains decayed plant matter, leaves, roots, and other nutrient-rich organics. It teems with life, ants, centipedes, earthworms, various beetles, their eggs and larvae, as well as microorganisms. In the urban part of the city, at a depth of 30 centimeters, around 12 inches, we'll see various types of utilities. The safest are laid highest, internet and telephone cables usually at a depth of 30 to 90 centimeters. Gas pipelines are laid a bit deeper, from 45 to 120 centimeters, depending on specific requirements and local safety regulations. Electric cables usually run at depths from 60 to 120 centimeters, that's 2 to 4 feet, which ensures protection from damage. Here, the safety of both the cables and the people is at stake. Water supply and sewerage pipelines are laid at 120 to 240 centimeters, that's up to 8 feet. Such depth protects against mechanical damage and temperature deformation. All this forms a dense network that binds the city up to a depth of around 2.5 meters, 8 feet. This is why you can see signs like these within the city. Or like these. It would be a bad idea to dig in such places. All these utilities are laid for a purpose. They connect private homes and administrative buildings to the city infrastructure. Most houses have both above-ground and underground parts. The foundations of private homes in Los Angeles are laid at various depths along with utilities. For small residential houses of 1 or 2 stories, Shallow foundations are usually laid at a depth of 45 to 60 centimeters, that's 18 to 24 inches, suitable for flat areas with stable soils. Larger houses or areas with less stable soils require depths of 60 to 120 centimeters. Due to the region's seismic activity, foundations are sometimes deepened to 1.5 meters or more for added stability and safety. At this same level, we can find basements. In the southern US, basements are less commonly built in private homes than in the north, but they exist. Shallow basements are at depths of 1.5 to 2.5 meters, that's 5 to 8 feet, while proper basements are at depths of 2.5 to 3 meters from the ground level. That's not all. There is much more hidden beneath Los Angeles. If we can't dig thoroughly, how can we see what's happening under Los Angeles? Now let's imagine that we descended underground to the level of utilities and acquired a superpower to move quickly through the earth. Moreover, we can pass through the soil and everything else, not burrow like a mole. It's pretty cool, right? Let's continue our journey through underground Los Angeles. As we descend past several dusty, dark basements to reach a depth of 4.5 meters, it's 15 feet underground, we'll find ourselves in a huge hall filled with cars. This is the vault of the Petersen Automotive Museum. Over 100 rare car models created over the 120-year history of automobile manufacturing are stored right here. And this is only what couldn't fit upstairs in the museum's 25 galleries. Just look at these cars. The museum's founders, husband and wife Robert and Margie Petersen, were passionate car enthusiasts and turned their hobby into this epic exhibit. This isn't to mention their other remarkable achievements in publishing and collecting. We're diving right into the gleaming polished floor of this vault, descending even deeper. But we don't have to go down for long. At a depth of 3 to 4 meters, 13 feet and onwards, we find ourselves in yet another strange room. And it will sharply differ from the luxury shine of the Petersen Vault. We find ourselves in some dark tunnels. There is an atmosphere of abandonment here. Our tunnel intersects with others, but the scene is the same everywhere. Dirt, old graffiti and crumbling brickwork. What are these abandoned catacombs and why are they here? They present such a stark contrast to the bustling urban life above. Here, you can also see some old rails. It seems like nothing has run on them for a very long time though. Now things become a bit clearer. These tunnels under Los Angeles were once operational railways that belonged to two separate lines. The Pacific Electric Red Car and the Los Angeles Railway Yellow Car. They were used from the late 19th century until the 1960s. The entire underground complex still vaguely resembles a set of railway stations, but decades of abandonment have left their mark, making these places quite grim. And it's even more intriguing to delve into the history of these tunnels. During the Prohibition period from 1920 to 1933, an underground and dark life thrived here in every sense of the word. While the world above endured enforced sobriety, these tunnels were actively used for bootleggers to transport illegal alcohol, and there was also illegal bars operating underground. Rumor has it that over the decades, these tunnels were used by the police to transport prisoners by the mafia, to dispose of bodies by the banks, to move cash, and much more. Quite a place, huh? This is not just some underground dungeon. It's an impressive network of tunnels, about 17 kilometers, 10 miles long. For bootleggers and regular patrons of drinking establishments, there was plenty of space here to hide, store, transport, and even produce alcohol on an industrial scale. The above-ground establishments were cleverly disguised. For example, the townhouse in Venice. Here, customers slipped through a concealed door on the floor and entered a room that could hold no more than 2 people at a time. Or the King Eddie Bar, founded in 1906. During Prohibition from 1920 to 1933, it opened as a piano store. Yet its basement continued to operate as a bar. Rumour has it that it was directly connected to this very underground tunnel system. Such establishments adopted the name Speakeasy, and some of them have become historical landmarks of Los Angeles. Nowadays, it's not easy to access these tunnels legally. This is primarily due to safety concerns, as part of the brick archways regularly fall off. However, sometimes enthusiasts manage to do it. In some places in the city, you can even descend to the tunnel level by elevator or escalator. But let's continue our journey. We are passing by the city utilities and a bunch of other things, and suddenly it seems we've ended up in someone's basement again. But there's something unusual here. There's almost none of the usual everything but the kitchen sink stuff people typically store in basements. Instead, we see a room clearly set up for the long-term stay of several people. Bunks, sleeping bags, hygiene supplies, as well as canned food, medicines, and even collections of magazines. Someone clearly intended to survive a zombie apocalypse here. This is a shelter that came as a bonus to people who bought a house in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley area. The thing is, the previous owners equipped it back in the mid-20th century when the threat of nuclear war was not just plausible, but very real. And nothing has changed there since then. The shelter has turned into a real-time capsule. It should be noted that this is not a bomb shelter, but specifically a fallout shelter. Although it's located several meters underground, it would not have withstood a close nuclear explosion. Such shelters were built during the Cold War when the threat of nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union caused serious concern. Looking at this place, one can't help but wonder, how many more such shelters are there in Los Angeles? We can answer. Thousands. Under many administrative buildings, under McDonald's restaurants, under schools, under churches. Many bunkers were kept strictly secret, their existence becoming known only many years later when some were opened to the public. Of course, not all of them are such time capsules. Many of them are probably just used as basement spaces now. But you could quite possibly find among them shelters like that, like this one, are filled with essentials from the Cuban Missile Crisis era. On the official Los Angeles government website, lacity.gov, you can download the following document. The appendix lists the addresses of 2,900 public shelters in Los Angeles, and this is just a fraction. You can find the full list in the catalogue of the Los Angeles Central Library. If you've been to the USA, or even more so, if you live there, you have probably seen these signs. You most probably didn't pay attention to them. By the way, these are not only public shelters. We started this story with a private one. So, are there probably more? Most likely, yes. Someone once asked on Quora, are there any private bunkers in Los Angeles, California that can be rented or hired out as fallout shelters during an emergency? The retired police officer and military person comprehensively answered this question. The word private should give you a clue. People who have private bunkers generally don't advertise them because when it's time to head to the bunker, they don't want a crowd of people heading to the same place. One can only guess how many such shelters are hidden beneath Los Angeles, whose very existence the owners prefer to keep secret. Shall we go deeper? Descending another several feet, we find ourselves in yet another tunnel. Well, that's hardly surprising. But here, there's no mistaking about what kind of tunnel it is and purpose. The sound of water below already gives us a hint, and the smell. The smell leaves no doubts. We're in a sewer located at a depth of 6 to 9 meters, 20 to 30 feet. The Los Angeles sewer system is impressive in its scale and engineering complexity. It is one of the largest and oldest ones in the US. Just think about this. The LA sewer system includes about 27,359 kilometers of pipes of various diameters. If laid end to end, this chain would stretch over nearly 2/3 of the Earth's equator. The thinnest local sewer pipes run from each house to a local collection site, which usually looks like an underground well, accessible through a manhole. Indeed, those manholes we see in the streets lead to such wells. When enough wastewater accumulates in the underground well, it flows into the next larger pipe. The main collectors, which carry most of the wastewater, lie at depths of 3 to 9 meters, 10 to 30 feet. This is the kind of collector we've just flown into. What else can you see here besides sewage? Quite a lot. You might encounter not only utility workers but also tourists. Yes, indeed, some thrill seekers will go even that far as to conduct tours of this pungent corner. We might even see drones on our way. They've been used by technical services for a long time to monitor the condition of collectors and pipes. And of course, this place teems with life. Countless bacteria, fungi, mold, and larger life forms, like insects and even rats. The scene of a rat coming up from the sewer into your toilet is worthy of a horror movie. Unfortunately, these cases do happen, though they are extremely rare, especially considering that Los Angeles ranks a threatening second place in the US for rat infestations right after Chicago. Anyway, it's a place where you wouldn't want to linger for long. Delving a few feet towards Hawthorne, we're flying into another tunnel. Will we ever get out of this sewer? But this place, it's far too clean for a sewer, and it's clearly built very recently. There are tracks below, but this can't be a subway. Here, the depth is about 10 meters, 30 feet, while most of the subway is deeper. Besides, the place doesn't look like a subway at all. Well, what is it then? The internal diameter is about 4 meters, 13 feet, or to be precise, 4.2 meters. The tunnel is straight and even stretching for 1.83 kilometers, 1.14 miles. There's nothing to speculate on further. However, the tunnel is suspiciously close to the headquarters of Elon Musk's SpaceX company. This is clearly not a coincidence. And finally, everything starts to make sense. This is the very same boring test tunnel built by Musk's The Boring Company in 2018. It was an epic construction project that started in 2016. The tunnel was built by a machine developed by The Boring Company. And here the ambitious Musk decided to set another record. When construction started, he spoke at TED and explained that even a snail moves on average 14 times faster than a typical tunneling machine. His plan was to improve the machines to the point where they would move at least faster than a snail. At the tunnel opening party, Musk brought along his pet, a snail named Gary. This was already the 6th snail, as they don't live very long, but it surely served as an inspiration for Musk's next bright ideas. One cannot say that he managed to outpace the snail, since the construction of the less than 2 kilometer long tunnel took about 2 years. Nevertheless, the construction process provided many useful insights and, in general, the efforts were not in vain. Moreover, thanks to it, another Boring Company tunnel operates under Las Vegas. The tunnel under Los Angeles was built as a testbed to try out the Boring Company's idea on innovative public transportation, including Hyperloop. These ideas were later realized in the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop. Let's dive into the depths of underground Los Angeles and go southward, gradually descending a few more feet through the familiar landscape of pipes, wells, building foundations. Here, at a considerable depth of 10 to 15 meters, 33 to 50 feet, we find ourselves amid dazzlingly luxurious quarters. Yep, we're in an underground private house. It has a chic banquet hall, a luxurious sauna and spa, and even a well-equipped tennis court. Additionally, there's a ballroom with marble columns and crystal chandeliers. Next to this classic luxury is a state-of-the-art movie theater with all the high-tech attributes. All these rooms, designed for various purposes, are located on several underground floors. What is this place anyway? We are at Hacienda de la Paz, a luxurious mansion located in rolling hills. Its standout feature isn't just its incredible opulence, but the fact that this luxury extends to extensive underground levels. The total area of the underground spaces is several thousand square feet, comparable to the area of the house above ground. This magnificence extends downward over 5 floors, reaching a total depth of 15 meters, 50 feet. Why build all this luxury underground rather than above? The reason is that only single-story buildings are allowed in this area. Indeed, the surface level complies with all regulations. There is only 1 floor, but these rules say nothing about building underground. And thus, Hacienda de la Paz emerged. Not just a house, but a true underground palace, astonishing and delighting us with its scale and sophistication. Let's go on, shall we? We are going to the lowest floor and diving even deeper. What awaits us at a depth of 20 to 30 meters, 65 to 100 feet? Don't forget that Los Angeles is, after all, a metropolis with towering skyscrapers. And they too have foundations. These are massive monolithic engineering structures made of concrete and steel that are absolutely needed to support giant buildings. Several types of foundations are used for skyscrapers, mainly pile and mat foundations. Piles can reach from 20 to 60 meters, 65 to 197 feet deep, or even more depending on geological conditions and structural requirements. In the seismically risky environment of Los Angeles, high-rise buildings mostly have even more reliable monolithic concrete foundations. For example, the Wilshire Grand Center, the tallest skyscraper in Los Angeles, uses a so-called mat foundation. This is a solid concrete slab, 5.5 meters thick, that supports the entire building, distributing the load over a large area. The main steel columns that support the skyscraper's frame are embedded within this massive slab. The construction of this foundation involved one of the largest continuous concrete pours in US history. In seismically active areas like Los Angeles, skyscraper foundations also include special seismic isolators that help reduce the impact of earthquakes. Seismic isolators are typically made of rubber and steel. They are installed between the building's foundation and its above-ground structure, creating a flexible layer that absorbs tremors. These massive engineering structures are what we'll continually see if we fly below the surface in the downtown area. And of course, skyscrapers have their own basements, though this is a massive understatement as the lower levels of large buildings often extend several floors underground. It's hard to just call them basements, considering their size. For example, both skyscrapers in the California Plaza complex on Bunker Hill in downtown Los Angeles have some of the deepest underground parking and infrastructure in the city, which is at least 5 floors deep. But perhaps the deepest underground levels belong to the Wilshire Grand Center, one of the tallest skyscrapers in Los Angeles. The skyscraper has 6 underground floors that include parking and technical facilities. They go approximately 27 meters, 90 feet deep. That's actually very deep, and even deeper than most of the tunnels and subway stations in Los Angeles. By the way, what about the city's subway? How deep does it go? And what's it like? Well, it seems like we've already reached the deepest part of the subway level. The deepest subway station in Los Angeles is the Wilshire Western Station on the Purple Line. It's located at a depth of about 27 meters, 90 feet. This station serves downtown LA and is an important hub for passengers traveling throughout the city. At what depths do the other subway lines run? It depends on the specific section. Some tunnels are only a few feet underground, while others reach 10 meters, 33 feet down, or even deeper. If we wanted to explore the total length of the Los Angeles subway tunnels, that would be quite a task. The entire network stretches over 170 kilometers. And if anyone tells you ghost stories about workers lost in the tunnel maze 100 years ago, we're afraid we have to disappoint you. The Los Angeles subway is relatively new. It began operation only as late as 1990. This is literally yesterday compared to the New York subway, and even more so the London Underground, which we talked about in previous videos. This is likely because most local residents have their own cars, so authorities focused on building new highways rather than new public transportation systems. Well, what other interesting things can we find if we go deeper and deeper under Los Angeles? Is there anything else at all? Let's take a look and find out. Going deeper, we'll often encounter water columns. What are these? These are private and industrial wells that draw water from deep aquifers up to 90 meters, 295 feet deep. This is how they look if you see them directly from the ground mass. And there are quite a few of them in the city. What's next? The deeper we go, the more monotonous the landscape becomes. At a depth of 100 meters, 330 feet, we see only sand, rocks, and occasionally pockets of deep water deposits. And then a city legend of Los Angeles comes to mind, one that has never been taken seriously. But now, being at such a depth, we might encounter underground reptilians. Hold on, don't switch off just yet. Let us explain. Los Angeles has always been known for its cultural and ethnic diversity, but in 1934 the city outdid itself. There started rumors about the existence of an ancient civilization of people who worshipped lizards and also looked somewhat reptilian. These rumors didn't come out of nowhere. They are said to have roots in the legends of the Hopi tribe. However, the legends spoke not of lizard people, but of ant people. The legend says that they led the tribe to underground shelters, providing refuge and food until the surface world became habitable again. In the 1930s, all of this caught the interest of G. Warren Shufelt, an amateur engineer and adventurer. He claimed to have found evidence of these underground cities. Using his bizarre invention, which was essentially just an X-ray device, he allegedly discovered previously unknown tunnels beneath Los Angeles, stretching from the Central Park Library to Chavez Ravine, where there is now the Dodger Stadium. After his alleged discovery, Shufelt reached out to a chief named Greenleaf from the Hopi tribe in Arizona. The chief confirmed the legends of the lizard people who built underground cities to escape a great disaster. A giant tongue of fire that destroyed everything in its path. These cities were dug with the help of some chemical substances, and the tunnels provided ventilation thanks to the tides. Having this knowledge, Shufelt began excavations on Fort Moore Hill in downtown Los Angeles. He even managed to get permission from the city authorities and drilled nearly 100 meters, 250 feet underground, hoping to find tunnels. However, instead of tunnels and underground chambers, he found only dirt and water. The site quickly flooded with groundwater and the search had to be stopped. Shufelt was never able to prove the existence of the underground city. Despite Shufelt's failure, the legend of the lizard people continues to live in the city's mythology. Even without real evidence, this story has become part of Los Angeles' cultural heritage. Some still believe in the existence of lizard people and continue to search for their traces in other places, such as around Mount Shasta in Northern California. So if you had the real and not imaginary chance to find out where the lizard people lived under Los Angeles, would you investigate? Comment down below. Whatever the case, this is just 100 meters, 330 feet deep. It's riveting to see what lies even deeper. We're going a few hundred feet down. Here's what we encounter, something black and viscous like tar. Hold on, actually it is tar, but it quickly becomes clear that in this case the tar just lines the inside of some reservoir filled with something black and oily. It's oil, a whole lake of oil under Los Angeles. Yes, the city lies directly on a large oil field. It's located north of downtown Los Angeles. Long and narrow, it stretches directly south of Dodger Stadium and continues westward to Vermont Avenue, covering an area that is about 6 kilometers, 4 miles long. The oil in the Los Angeles City oil field is relatively close to the surface. That's why we reached it so quickly. The field has 3 separate productive horizons, or vertical zones, which are sequentially numbered as the first, second, and third zones. The average depth of these 3 zones from top to bottom is approximately 900, 1,100, and 1,500 feet, 457 meters. Those who have never been to Los Angeles might immediately ask, does this mean oil is extracted right in the city? Are there oil rigs right in the streets? You'd be surprised, but yes, the history of oil extraction in Los Angeles is deep, dramatic, and sometimes surprising. Tar has been seeping to the surface in these areas since prehistoric times. The Native American population used it for waterproofing and other purposes. They didn't know about oil and its value then, but once its value was recognized, that's when the real story began. The earliest known well in the field, called the Dryden Well, was essentially a relatively shallow hand-dug pit near the intersection of 3rd Street and Colorado Street in 1857. In 1890 to 1892, several prospectors made more determined efforts to establish new wells. The most successful was Edward Doheny and Cannon's Well. Doheny figured out how to use a pointed eucalyptus log as an improvised impact hammer to deepen the well. At that time, there were no regulations in California regarding the distance between wells. Therefore, anyone with $1,000 to $1,500 to spend on drilling an oil well could potentially become rich. By the way, the most successful entrepreneur in this area was a piano teacher from Kentucky named Emma Summers. She initially bought a half share in a well near the modern Civic Center for $700 and then acquired several more on credit. She reinvested the income from oil into more and more wells. Local power companies, hotels, and utilities bought her oil. When the price of oil peaked at around $1.80 per barrel, Emma managed about half the wells in the central part of the field. This earned her the nickname Oil Queen of California. Remarkably, even while being an oil magnate and managing complex accounting, Emma continued to give piano lessons in the evenings. As the oil boom waned, Summers' fortune dwindled. By 1915, the peak years of her oil business had ended, and she largely withdrew from her once prominent business life. Overall, more than 9 billion barrels of oil have been extracted from the time of the oil fever to present day. The peak production in the entire Los Angeles basin from all the fields took place in the 1930s. At that time, approximately 137 million barrels of oil were produced annually. This is equivalent to about 375,000 barrels of oil per day. So how is oil extraction in these areas doing now? Let's take a look at this map. Can you guess what each of these dots represents? And if you zoom in, it looks even more impressive. Indeed, each dot represents a drilling rig. But how come? Right in the city? Yep, exactly. Here's what it looks like on the surface. This has already become an issue for the city. In 2022, LA authorities began tentative discussions toward banning oil extraction in the city. The city council approved a resolution requiring existing drilling rigs within the city limits to close within the next 20 years. This historic decision came after many years of residents complaining that pollution from nearby wells affected their health. Currently, it's prohibited to establish new oil rigs and gas wells in Los Angeles. The old ones remain for now. Alright, so what lies below this oil lake under Los Angeles? Let's imagine that we've reached the bottom of the lake and are now going deeper and deeper. Finally, we would find ourselves at a point where the drilling of the deepest oil well in Los Angeles stopped. The depth is 2,300 meters, about 7,500 feet. But there is no oil here. It all remained much higher. Drilling stopped because beyond this point there would be nothing but sand and rocks.
While I was down there, there was something that happened. I don't even know what to call it. There was something that sounded like an earthquake, something that sounded like people got into a fight. There was a shooting. I was taken from one room to another, and then from there, someone left me there. I started moving and trying to get out of where I was. I was with the friend that I came in with, who was freaking out. She was hyperventilating. She was crying. She was trying everything to get out, and it made us get deeper in. The lower you go, the harder it is to get out. No one knows where the doors are. No one knows where the exits are. No one knows where some of these tunnels lead to. So it's not as easy as just say, I'm just going to get out, or I'm just going to try to find a way out. If you are walked in, you're escorted in, somebody has to help you get out. After what happened, we had to leave. Again, I don't know what was going on. I'm still not sure what happened that night. Maria, I am so sorry. I am my brain is I'm so sorry. I don't even know what's wrong with me right now. I'm being honest. I'm like stupid sweating, and I don't even know what's wrong. But I'm fine. Okay.
It's a very, very difficult topic.
Guys, they found underground tunnels at Diddy's homes. This was first brought up by Shadow of Ezra, where he talked about the underground tunnels in Diddy's luxurious Los Angeles mansion. It was an underwater swimming tunnel leading to a mysterious grotto, reminiscent of an ancient and modern human use of caves. Now, this is all alleged, of course, but they say that this tunnel connects to the Playboy Mansion. You guys remember that? Hugh Hefner, the guy who lived with all those women in his mansion? There's no available evidence right now. However, reports are noting that Combs mansions do have a pool with an underwater swimming tunnel. They say it's not connected to the Playboy Mansion, but there is a reason why the Playboy Mansion keeps coming up. 10 years ago, they were building underground tunnels to the Playboy Mansion for people like Jack Nicholson for his birthday. So this way, they don't have to go through the outside, but go underground in secret to the Playboy Mansion to do God knows what. You can see the sketches here of these underground tunnels being built. They were working on it, and it was supposed to connect celebrities like Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, Michael Jackson, just to name a few. As reported by People magazine, these underground tunnels to the Playboy Mansion were sealed off in the 1980s. The question is, do you believe that? Stay safe and be smart.
Well, here's a bit of trivia for you. Baltimore is home to the nation's oldest public market. It is, of course, the famed Lexington Market.
Yes, indeed. And for the past couple of years, it's undergone a major renovation. It's set to reopen later this year, and our very own Mike Helgren went to the market for a tour and discovered what lies beneath.
Few places in Baltimore are as steeped in history as Lexington Market. For 240 years, it has survived fires, raids, and the ups and downs of Baltimore itself. From a sprawling, mostly outdoor marketplace that grew to more than 1,000 vendors, Lexington Market got its start when our nation was new. And it's still going strong, set to reopen later this year in a reimagined space. The A-frame roof is a nod to what the market looked like in the early 1900s.
What you're seeing here today, Mike, is the new Lexington Market.
We got a peek inside with Pickett Slater Harrington of Transformed Lexington Market.
So imagine everywhere surrounding us, 360s, vendors cooking and preparing food, while in the middle you have specialty vendors that are selling their wares as well, while downstairs you have all the fresh food.
The new South Market facility, which at one time was a department store, then a parking lot, has been under construction for 2 years, and he can't wait until everyone gets to experience it.
I hear a lot of great hope and fear when it comes to the development of Lexington Market. Sometimes it's a fear of change and things being different, but there's also this tremendous, deep hope for Lexington Market, and that hope is what's driving this project, and it's truly going to be what the community of Baltimore makes this space. And that's, I think, the great story that you'll see is a connection between this physical space and a city that pulls everybody together.
The rebirth is one of many over the years. The market got its current look after a devastating fire in 1949 led to redevelopment. Tracing its origins to 1782, Lexington Market was always a bustling collection of stalls, though many were outdoors. You can still see the vendor numbers etched into the curbs on West Lexington Street.
They really didn't want you to know what was happening down here, so we can only kind of guess.
Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, yes, that is his name, helped us unlock some of Lexington Market's mysteries, taking us under the garage that spans between Paca and Green Streets. It's here where large underground vaults, the catacombs, still exist, although tours like this one have not yet resumed.
We kind of don't know how extensive it is. There are a couple mysterious doors that are concreted up that we don't know where they go or where they lead to. But we're pretty sure the tunnels went at least a couple blocks west of the market, probably to a set of slaughterhouses.
This network of tunnels and storage rooms below busy West Baltimore streets was used for storage before the days of refrigeration.
Is it common to have that in other East Coast cities? Yeah, because it gets hot as the dickens in the summer.
During Prohibition, bootleg whiskey was distilled, and in the 1930s there was even an anti-communist raid.
They found a bunch of boxes of produce, and they dutifully searched through a box of lettuce and a tub of butter, and they found absolutely nothing.
In the 70s and 80s, a restaurant called Tubbs, whose faded storefront is still visible on Green Street, operated on one of the main vaults. The dusty old fixtures are still there. Tubbs was abandoned in a hurry, shut down reportedly over go-go dancing in the late 80s, and the space remains frozen in time.
The liquor board chair, in closing it down, said something like, I am no nun, and what I saw there would make me ashamed.
You can see the ghosts of the past here. You just have to know where to look.
It is almost impossible to come down here and not wonder what's happened over the 150 or more years in these tunnels and in these spaces.
It's the place that has fed Baltimore for centuries.
Yeah, this is the best chicken in the city right here.
I love Krause's Deli. They do a fresh roasted turkey.
Paul Rupert now runs Lexington Market along with Baltimore's other historic marketplaces.
Public markets are special because they attract and they appeal to everyone.
And he's excited to share the latest reimagination of this iconic Baltimore space.
One of the most important projects that we've done in Baltimore for the last couple of decades.
With more than 2 centuries of history, Lexington Market is evolving yet again into a new gathering place, hoping to keep that old Baltimore charm.
When you talk to regulars here, what keeps them coming back?
Really, they come for the vibrancy and the vitality.
The new market building really builds on a 200-year tradition of this fascination with Lexington Market and a commitment by all of us who love it to make it as vibrant and relevant today as it has been for generations and generations.
This is where I'm at now. Ooh. Oh, there's a big spider down here. That's gotta be a big spider. Or a whole family of them to make that. I'm just down here. go down here. Thought I heard something. Anybody down here? Is anybody down here? What the fuck is that? Hell. Fuck was that? Keep hearing shit. Some more webs. Man, this shit is creepy as fuck. I'm all the way in the ground. Fuck. What's that? Fuck this. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Fuck that shit. There's nobody down here but me. So why the fuck am I hearing shit? What the fuck that bang was? I'm getting the fuck out of here. Man. Why the fuck? There's so much fucking noise down here. Ain't nobody down here. Oh, fuck this. I'm gonna be a G. Ain't nothing down here. Ain't no such thing as ghosts. None of that shit. Why? Fucking running. Just go down this hall. Get this little bit of shit. And keep it moving. That's all. That's all I gotta do. Just keep it moving. That's all. Oh shit! Fuck that! Fuck that! I'm out of here! I'm out of here! I'm out of here!
Underneath the Magic Kingdom is a series of crisscrossing corridors called utilidors that cover nearly 9 acres. This urban basement allows cast members and maintenance trucks to move freely from one section of the park to another without disturbing the guests. Makeup rooms, dressing rooms, design and decorating facilities are just some of the departments found here.
Walt Disney World has always been a place of great wonder for me. The unbelievable vastness of that resort is something that's hard to fathom. However, no matter how well oiled of a machine it is, some things are bound to somehow slip through the cracks. And the closed-off section of the Magic Kingdom Utilidors is definitely one of those things. In case you're unfamiliar with the Utilidors, they are part of a brilliant tunnel system to cover up the different cast members that are coming and going throughout Magic Kingdom, so that they don't spoil the illusion with a Haunted Mansion cast member walking through Tomorrowland or one Mickey walking past another. The fascinating thing about them is that they extend all throughout the park of Magic Kingdom, and they contain cafes, stores, historical landmarks, and a variety of other things that can be used by the thousands of cast members venturing throughout them every single day. I found out about the Utilidors when I started working at Adventureland last summer. I remember them being possibly the most fascinating part of my job with the company. Every day I would go deeper and deeper into them, just searching for what else I could find in there. I remember early one morning I found a homeless employee, with his bag and all of his belongings, sleeping in a forgotten little computer lab, somewhere underneath Main Street. You literally never knew what you would find down there. That was why I started talking to people that worked there full time. I wanted to know what sort of things they would see happening down there on a regular basis. So I started talking to this lady one day, who worked at a little window where you could swap out your Disney pins. I asked her if there were any weird things that most people didn't know about the Utilidors, that I could possibly go check out on the rest of my break. She spoke to me with a country accent, yet not seeming to have a great grip on the English language in general. According to her, about 20 years back, there was a hidden little tunnel that was closed off to the rest of the cast. It was toward the main entrance of the tunnel, and on the other side of the men's locker rooms. I asked her if she knew why it had been closed off, and she told me she heard something about a couple of cast members getting lost down there and disappearing. Apparently, after a few times of it happening, without any sort of explanation, management decided just to close it off and have cast members use a different route to get to the other side of the park. At that point, there was pretty much no possible way I wasn't going to check it out. So I decided to stay a little late after my morning shift the next day, with John, a friend of mine from Haunted Mansion. Once we entered the main entrance to the tunnels, we headed to the left, where the men's locker rooms were. The odd thing about these locker rooms were, though, that not many people used them. Most people kept their clothes in their attractions break room or just another area, so the locker rooms were basically these old, empty chambers, maybe one person in them if you were lucky. When we entered, the room was truly a labyrinth of lockers. There wasn't a single person anywhere to be found, and all the lockers seemed to have been from the 1970s. Not to mention the musky dinge of mold and probably asbestos. We searched for about an hour throughout the maze, but didn't have much luck. Then from around the side of a locker, a rickety old custodian stepped out. He seemed a bit dim from his blank, emotionless stare. He kind of gazed at us for a moment. Then he looked away from us and started spraying one of the lockers down with a spray bottle. So I figured we might as well take a chance with him and ask if he'd heard about the hidden tunnel system. He looked up at us with fear in his eyes, but didn't say a thing, for a bizarrely long time. This started to freak us out a bit, so we decided to apologize and be on our way. Then out of nowhere, the old man grabbed me and screamed, "No!" When he opened his mouth, I noticed his tongue was almost completely missing. I finally was able to rip away from him, and we took off in the other direction. Once we got around a corner, we paused for a break. Then we saw a set of lockers that had a slight opening at the side of it. "Do you think that could be it?" I said as I pointed at the opening. John, always sort of being down for whatever, shrugged his shoulders and walked towards the entrance. We got together and pushed the small row of lockers, mustering up just enough strength to move it just a tiny bit over. We then squeezed ourselves in through the opening and into a dusty old hallway that had clearly not been touched since the early days of the park. All the lights were off, so I pulled out my flashlight and shined it down the hall. "Holy shit, this is it," I whispered to my friend excitedly. We started to venture down it and noticed on the right-hand side of the hall there was a door with a window that said Archive on it. We entered and saw there was a massive underground warehouse in there. There were shelves and shelves of original memorabilia, racks of old cast member costumes, and tons of old, creepy costume heads extending as far as I could see. Whoa. I looked at John in awe at what we had just stumbled upon. I turned on a light and it buzzed loudly as it dimly lit up a small portion of the area. As we walked down the rows and rows of old costumes, I looked down one of them and thought I saw a figure in the distance. I grabbed my friend and whispered to him, "What was that?" We looked back down the row and couldn't see anything at the end. I thought I saw something standing down there. John smiled and said, "This chamber has no windows and no doors." I punched him in the arm and kept walking. "What do you think was wrong with that guy back in the locker room?" I said. You know how custodial is." John smiled and grabbed this old Mickey head from probably the 1950s. You know, the creepy ones with the wide black eyes and pointy noses. "God, those things were terrifying," I said, as I pushed the mask out of my face. I went down another direction, where there were shelves of broken Small World props. One of the little girl figures had holes where her eyes were supposed to be. "Dude, check this out!" I yelled as I looked back for John. But he wasn't anywhere in view. "John, where'd you go?" I walked back to where he put the mask, but he wasn't there. Then on my shoulder I felt a tapping. It was the familiar white glove of a Mickey Mouse hand. It looked like John had found the entire Mickey Mouse costume. He stared at me for a minute, then awkwardly waved at me. Jesus, man, don't you get to scare enough people while you're working? Mickey just stared at me without responding. "Okay, dude, you can stop now. It's getting irritating," I said, honestly a little bit frightened, but trying to hide it. Then I turned around and saw a fully assembled Pluto costume, licking its chops. Then it began jumping in place, eerily emulating the motions of a real dog. Horrified, I tore off down one of the aisles of costumes. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a bloody John being dragged across the floor by a giant Goofy at the other end of the room. Panicking, I crashed through a random door and slammed it behind me. I found myself in a tiny, dimly lit storage office with a desk and a chair. I clambered over to the desk and hid underneath, knocking over a box of old photos in the process. I held my breath and tucked myself deep underneath. I couldn't help noticing, though, that one of the old photos was of Walt at the early days of Disneyland. He was posing in the photos with all the old characters, but in a strange way, he seemed frightened by them. I grabbed the rest of the photos and began rifling through them. They were by no means pleasant. There were photos full of Goofy, Pluto, Mickey, and Minnie costumes out in the woods. They were by a fire at night. Then the next photos were almost too much to bear. They were of children being tied up by the characters. Suddenly I heard the doors slowly creak open. The two shadowy characters crept through the door and then toward me, with their hands out, perhaps ready to do whatever it was that they did to those children out in the woods. Then, when Pluto grabbed me, all I could think to do was try to pull his head off. I had to see who was underneath. Although, no matter how much I tried, it wouldn't budge. Then Pluto held my arms behind my back, and I saw as Mickey turned away from me. There was no seam for a zipper, and no separation where the costume could come apart. This thing, whatever it was real. That was when Goofy came in. He was dragging what looked to be a giant human leg-sized turkey leg behind him. I was only conscious for the first whack, and then it was all over. So to all those people who think that Disney is all sunshine and rainbows, heed this as a warning. There are few things in this world that don't have a dark underbelly to them. And if you fail to use caution, you could end up like me, just another random person that went missing at Disney one day.
It's a lot of youngsters shining right now. Okay. I just mentioned the baby, Lil Baby, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of youngsters in Miami that's doing their thing. I'm looking forward to get on this platform as well, so it's most definitely creative. I'm having a boss conversation with one of my homies, and he said, what's one of the bossest moves that you pulling off? And I said, matter of fact, I haven't said this yet, but I want to give a salute to Caterpillar. We breaking ground. I'm excavating. It's going down. Y'all know how I love real estate, and I usually like to build and go up. We going underground now. One time for all my doomsday preppers. Elon Musk, I see you. I saw your ground plans. I'm impressed, but guess what? My bunker gonna have a garage. My bunker gonna have wings. Huh? Yeah, we breaking ground.
huge excavations. You got to have your fluids. I got a water maker, a machine that makes water out of H2O. I got a water maker. We got our canned goods. So if you're thinking the brothers ain't ready, we ready.